So I wanted to talk about PayPal. It's a platform that most of us use as small business owners. We've all heard of it. Um, but it can really, really divide a room, especially when there are certain topics to play. Usually it's those do's and don'ts. Now, I have to say, I've been recently, making friends and influencing people on this very topic because I'll say something, they don't like what I've had to say, and then I've actually been blocked because of it. And actually, all I'm doing is sharing what I know, information that at one point or another was passed on to me, someone that was very unfamiliar with using PayPal's business. And I took what they said and went, oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me know, because I don't want to be doing anything that's unscrupulous that could get me into trouble with PayPal or anything else. So I pass on that information to other people when I see it. I tend to call a spade, that kind of thing. And people like to get that spade and bash me in the head with it instead, because they don't want my opinion. They don't want my advice. They are happy to kind of play the game of, I didn't know, so therefore I can't get into trouble. That doesn't wash. Doesn't wash. Just because you go la 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 over something doesn't mean that you're not going to get into trouble for doing it. So firstly, thing that I spot a lot is people, even on their business pages, I've noticed, asking for customers to pay via friends and family. Now, firstly, why is that a big no-no? Well, if you are actually exchanging goods and services, asking someone to pay friends and family goes against PayPal's terms and conditions. So it could result in them going, you're no longer allowed to use PayPal. PayPal isn't just something that you get to use all the time. If you break their terms and conditions, they can just simply ban you from using their website. This is the same thing with Facebook. If you break their terms and conditions, they own it. They own the rights. If you don't behave, if you don't go go with the rules, there are things that they can do to stop you from being able to use that platform. Why would you rock the boat if that is something is important to your business? You don't want to mess with the balance of things. So asking people to pay friends and family. Now, friends and family is just that purpose. It is for you to say, if you go for dinner with your friend and they pay, it's for you to then pay them back. So it's as simple as basically like putting cash in their hand if you don't have cash. It is not for businesses. It is not for an exchange of goods. So it should not be used for a business. I find it quite unprofessional if someone asks me to pay friends and family if I don't know them. If it's a business and it's the first time that I've used them as a business, it instantly makes me back away a little bit, because I'm thinking, why? Because when we pay with goods and services, we get buyer and seller protection. It's important I mention both of those, because with the buyer protection, if my item was not to come to me, if I had tried to then communicate with the seller and say the item hasn't come, etc., and they've just ignored me, because maybe they haven't sold it, maybe they haven't sent it, maybe it's a scam, I don't know, but for whatever reason they've ignored my calls or this, that and the other, I can then put in a dispute. And because we've gone through the goods and services, I've got that extra protection that I can get my money back by opening a dispute and this, that and the other. Also with sellers, if you're selling a product and you then have a buyer saying, oh, I haven't got it and this, that and the other, but you've got proof that you have posted it out, you've got maybe your receipts, your proof of postage, your tracking information, etc., then you can provide that to PayPal, and that acts as insurance that then PayPal will make sure that you don't have to pay up. So it does work both ways. Now, I could go on about the fact that PayPal doesn't like services and that it has issues with being able to prove services and this, that and the other. That's a video for another day, I believe. But you are, like I say, having that protection for the buyer and for the seller. So it's really important that if you are a business, you're paying through goods and services. And obviously, if you are enforcing friends and family, you're basically taking away their safety net. Even if they don't need it, you're taking it away from them. And if you have issues with an unauthorized transaction or an item that hasn't reached the destination, then obviously, like I say, you've got that proof, you've got that protection, you're protecting yourself as a seller. And most people don't like paying through goods and services because you've got to pay fees. And especially when it comes to like small companies, you know, you're a small business, you're thinking, oh, I can't afford to be, you know, selling this item and losing this money and this, that, and the other. But we can kind of get into this frame of mind that because you're a small business, you don't need to do it, or, you know, that you can't afford to do it. And actually what we need to be doing is making sure that we are putting things into our costings, that we're putting things into our pricing, these fees and this and that and the other. No one likes paying them. We don't. Big businesses, small businesses, we don't like paying fees, but it's there for a reason. You know, when we set up a business, we've got to be aware there are going to be certain costs involved, and we have to pay them to be compliant, whether it's our insurance, whether it's you know, making sure that it's compliant with trading standards and terms and conditions, things like that. We have to be making sure that we are paying our way, and failing to do so can lead us into more hot water. So we definitely don't want to be doing that, because we don't want to be putting all that hard work and effort into a business to then see it all come to nothing just because of one silly mistake. Also, just to mention, this is very important as well. If you go down this route of, oh, okay, so I can't ask people to pay friends and family. Okay, I will ask them to pay goods and services, and I will ask them to pay the fee. No. Again, this goes against PayPal's terms and conditions. The fees are for the seller to pay. So if you want a certain price for an item, factor in those fees and increase your price so that you get what you want and those prices are included. You can, I think there is a bit of a go around between adding like an admin fee or something like, or a booking fee or an admin fee, and that has to be on every single transaction. You can't just pick and choose and put it onto a transaction that is used, you know, PayPal goods and services. It has to just be that is a standard, because obviously doing so you get into trouble. So that is really, really important to add. You know, we have to factor these things in. If you go into Etsy, you're having to pay Etsy fees, and Etsy fees are considerably more than PayPal fees. All the platforms that you use, whether you're using, you know, you're allowing people to buy from using their credit cards, things like that, they also come with their own transaction fees. If you've got a Zettle or a SumUp, they take certain percentages. We have to factor those things in and include them into our pricing, because if you are in a stage or in a position where you're going, oh my God, if I have to pay all these fees, then my business isn't going to survive, which is what some of the posts I've seen on business pages are kind of like, I've lost £100 because of all these fees. Okay, well then you should have been incorporating that into your costings so that you didn't lose £100. It's as simple as that. You shouldn't be out of pocket. And, you know, people understand that you have fees and overheads and things that you need to factor in for when you're doing your pricing. Make sure that you do. This is obviously the advice that I gave to someone and then they blocked me for it, because I think sometimes people know these are the rules, and because they've been getting away with it for X amount of time, they think that I'll just carry on doing it. But that's kind of like, it's like kind of poking a bear and being like, well, I've been poking this bear for a while and so far he's not mauled me to death, so I'm just going to keep on doing it until he does. You know what happens when you do that final poke and that bear's finally had enough and it decides it's going to maul you? You're gone. That's it. You can't undo that mauling. And it's the same thing with PayPal. You do not want to do something on any platform that you know is going against their terms and conditions in the hope that they don't spot it, because when they do, that's it. They can lead to blacklisting. It can lead to you not being able to use that platform. And if it's important to you, as I've said before, you're in hot water. You don't want to get to that point. So yeah, my advice, make sure that any fees having to be paid are incorporated into your price. That way, after fees are taken, you're still left with what you wanted, and you haven't had to have an awkward question asking someone to pay friends and family when it could very be the reason that you lose a sale. Because people nowadays, if you say friends and family, they'll go, oh, it's a scam. Because if it was genuine, then they wouldn't be asking for that. And there's actually a story that my mom shared with me, actually, that was on Rip Off Britain. Someone that had sold his PlayStation or whatever it was. It was a games console. It was like £700 worth of kit that he'd sold on PayPal. And the person paid for it. They even sent him a message being like, oh, I've received it, thank you. And then a few days later, put in a case with PayPal. And because they had paid through friends and family, I assume because to avoid the fees, all that money got refunded back to the person. So this person was without his games console, he was without the money that he'd received for the games console, and he had no leg to stand on because essentially he'd done it through goods and services, i.e. he'd done it through friends and family, i.e. I trust this person implicitly and I'm sending this money and this and that and the other. Now, obviously, in terms of PayPal, that's their terms and conditions. They did everything by the book. It was really unfortunate for that person, but the lesson here is if you're selling something for money to somebody that you do not know, you do it through goods and services. That way you're protected. Because this bloke had everything. He had all of his tracking information. He had all the messages from the person saying that they'd received the parcel, but it didn't mean anything because it wasn't under their jurisdiction, their protection service. He hadn't paid that fee to have that protection, that peace of mind. It's a bit like insurance. You pay for insurance in case something bad happens. We hope nothing bad happens, but in case it does, we're covered. And that is the same with this kind of the PayPal fees, is that we're paying that fee. It's only a very small amount. We're paying that fee in case something happens. Luckily, obviously, to finish off the story, the guy did get his money back, and that's only, I think, because it made it onto Rip Off Britain and they kind of made PayPal feel bad and they went, okay, it's a goodwill gesture. But obviously that's not most scenarios and that's not for most people, so just keep yourself covered. And when we think of things like Etsy as well, there is a reason why prices are often inflated on the platform, because people are having to cover for those fees. They can sometimes, there's nothing to stop you from including prices, including things on your on your Etsy page. This is the price that it is, and then when people buying, putting out saying you can buy it directly from my website for X amount cheaper, and kind of counteracting those fees. It's absolutely up to you. It just obviously incentivizes people to buy directly, but even on your website you're still going to be paying fees. It's just about weighing up what fees are higher, lower, what you're getting for those fees in terms of protection and this, that and the other insurances. So yes, I hope that's helped you in terms of the do's and don'ts on PayPal. It is something that people struggle with a lot, knowing what to do, and it's something that I've definitely been coming across more and more, people kind of wanting to stick it to the man, not having to pay fees and not having to do this and do that, but it's there for a reason. Hopefully that story that I've just shared with you shows you why it's there for a reason, for that protection element of it. Yes, I hope it helps. Let me know in the comments if it has. And if you've got any of your own PayPal stories, maybe they're horror stories, maybe they're stories where you went, I'm so glad that I did this because, X, Y, and Z happened. Let me know in the comments, and see you all next time.